You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we review the third Ashes Test between Australia and England from the MCG. It's the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast, and let's get started. Let's have a look at the match summary from the third Ashes Test at the MCG between Australia and England. England batted first and made 185 all out in their first innings. Root top scored with 50, and Lyon and Cummins took 3 wickets each for Australia. Australia in their first innings were all out for 267. Harris top scored with 76, and Anderson took 4 wickets for England. England in their second innings were all out for 68. Root was the top scorer with 28, and Boland took 6 wickets for Australia. Australia won by an innings and 14 runs, and Scott Boland was named man of the match. What were the key moments and key factors from this third Ashes Test between Australia and England? Australia's bowling dismissing England for 185 in their first innings. Australia's batting getting to 267 and getting a crucial first innings lead of 82 runs. Australia's bowling to bowl England out for 68 in their second innings to win by an innings and 14 runs and to retain the Ashes. Those were the key moments, key factors from this third Ashes Test at the MCG. Let's have a look at both teams' performances with both bat and ball in this third Ashes Test at the MCG. We'll start with Australia and their batsmen. Harris, 76, Warner, 38, Labuschagne, 1, Smith, 16, Head, 27, Green, 17, and Carey, 19. That's how the Australian batsmen went about things in this third Ashes Test at the MCG. I thought Australia's batting was a pretty good effort on a very difficult surface here at the MCG. They did well to get to 267 on a pitch that assisted the bowlers throughout the whole match. There was a bit of grass on the surface, obviously. A bit unusual to see that amount of grass on the MCG wicket. It was around about 11 millimetres, something like that, which did help the bowlers get a bit of seam movement and swing and kept the ball in good condition. And it's great to see the MCG wicket finally do something for once, obviously, because the last few years in particular, it hasn't been great. It's been a flat road. It hasn't been really doing much. So great to see that the groundsman's actually improved the pitch. And obviously, it's created some very good cricket, as we've seen in this third Ashes Test. Australia were in a bit of trouble in their first innings. England were bowling well to them and challenging them for once in the series. They were 4 for 110, not looking like getting a big first innings lead in this test match. But the middle to lower order, their runs were very crucial. Some handy partnerships, 61 for the 5th wicket between Harris and Head, 27 for the 7th wicket between Carey and Green, 12 for the 8th wicket between Carey and Cummins, 34 for the 9th wicket between Stark and Cummins, and 14 for the 10th wicket between Stark and Boland, were all handy partnerships for Australia on a pitch that was difficult for batting. So all those contributions and partnerships from the middle to lower order were crucial in Australia getting to 267 in their first innings and getting the handy lead of 82 runs on a surface that was difficult for batting. Also, Marcus Harris's innings of 76 was very crucial for Australia as well in getting them into that position. And in the end, it was a match-winning innings, and also it was a match-winning performance from Harris as well. And also those partnerships were match-winning as well for Australia, because that lead of 82 runs was very handy, and they were able to bowl England out for 68 and win by an innings and 14 runs. Marcus Harris, let's talk about him. Very important innings for him. He needed to score runs to keep his spot in the team. He's certainly done that. Good 76 he scored in the first innings. I thought it was a very good innings from him. It was an important innings for his team in setting up this victory for Australia. Did very well to score runs on a tough pitch that was tough for batting, as we've mentioned before. Batted well, but will be disappointed not to get the century. But hopefully he can convert that into 100 before the end of the series. So he's definitely kept his spot for the last 2 test matches. He scored runs here, so hopefully for Harris he can score the 100 and really get going in his Test career. But I thought it was a very good innings from Marcus Harris, which really helped Australia in terms of them setting up this game and going on to win it by an innings and 14 runs. So his innings was very crucial. Let's talk about some of the stats from Australia's batting in this Test match. Australia's first innings total of 267, which was enough to win by an innings and 14 runs. It is the lowest to win by an innings in Test cricket since 1986. Australia's first innings lead of 82 runs is the third lowest for any men's team while winning a Test by an innings. Australia's first innings total of 267. In Melbourne, only 5 teams have won by an innings margin in Tests with a lower total since 1900. It is also the second lowest total to result in an innings win in the Ashes, behind the 172 all-out by England in 1888 in Manchester. So those are some of the stats that come out from Australia's batting performance in this third Ashes Test from the MCG. Overall, it was a good batting performance from Australia. Let's have a look at the bowler's performance for Australia in this third Ashes Test from the MCG. 2 wickets for Green, 3 wickets for Cummins, 5 wickets for Stark, 7 wickets for Boland, and 3 wickets for Lyon. That's how the Australian bowlers performed in this third Ashes Test. I thought Australia's bowling once again was excellent in this Test match, as it has been throughout the whole series. In the first innings, to dismiss England for 185 after winning the toss and choosing to bowl first was a great effort from the bowlers. They bowled well, their lines and lengths were consistent. They bowled well to the conditions on day one, which had a bit of overcast skies, and the pitch had a bit of green grass on the surface. And they were able to use those conditions to their advantage and bowl England out for 185 after Pat Cummins chose to bowl first in this match. I thought it was a very aggressive move from Pat Cummins to bowl first. I thought that was a very aggressive move. He backed himself and his bowlers to get the job done. And they did. They bowled England out for 185 and put Australia in a commanding position in this Test match. So I like that from Pat Cummins, backing himself, but also backing his bowlers and putting England in on that surface, knowing that England's batting is quite fragile and Australia just wanted to go for that killer blow, and that's what they did. And they bowled him out for 185. So good bowling effort in the first innings. But the second innings is where they bowled superbly. It was absolutely brilliant. The spell from Stark, Cummins and Boland just before stumps on day 2 was outstanding. It was high-quality bowling at its best. Probably some of the best bowling I've seen in Test match cricket for a very long time, especially towards the end of the day, where you need to take some wickets heading into the next day. It was absolutely outstanding. They had England 4 for 22 at stumps on day 2 and pretty much smashed England's hopes and dreams and sealed the Ashes right there. They were relentless and they were full out aggressive. And they went on the attack, Australia, and they were able to pick up 4 wickets. And England, once again, their batting crumbled under pressure. No surprises there. And I thought their bowling on the morning of day 3 was outstanding. Their lines and lengths were consistent. Their execution was good. They took wickets at regular intervals. The pressure they applied on England with the ball was outstanding. And they were bowled out for 68. And they were able to bowl England out for 68 just before lunch and win by an innings of 14 runs, which is barely believable. But there was one man who stole the show, and that's the debutant, Scott Boland. It was the Scott Boland show. And what a Test debut from Scott Boland. He was pretty much a horses for courses selection, given his record at the MCG, being the MCG specialist. He bowled very well in the first innings, I thought, picking up 1 wicket for 48 runs. But it's the second innings where it was the Boland show. He was in the zone, and as a player, you have those games where everything goes to plan. And Boland had that day where everything went to plan. Every time he bowled the ball, he landed it on the perfect spot, and it just felt like he was going to take a wicket every ball. He took those 2 wickets late on day 2, but the bowling effort from him in the morning on day 3 was outstanding, and he just took wickets for fun. The thing is, he may not play Test cricket again for Australia because we've got such great bowlers, and that's the great thing about Australia, is that they've got great fast bowling depth. And for Scott Boland coming in into this side. He's not a young man. He's in his 30s. Quite old to debut as a bowler in your 30s, but he absolutely bowled well and deserved every bit of what he got in this match. Obviously, picking up 6 for 7. Brilliant figures. Unheard of figures. Just like under 12s cricket, where you pick up those figures. He deserved his opportunity and took it with both hands. And well done, Scott Boland. He bowled superbly and pretty much guided Australia to a victory, but also in Australia retaining the Ashes. And he will never forget this debut, Scott Boland. He will never forget it for the rest of his life. And people at the MCG who were there will never forget it as well. And will say, I was there when Scott Boland took 6 for 7 and knocked over England. And Australia bowled him out for 68, won by an innings of 14 runs and retained the Ashes. So definitely his performance will be definitely there in Ashes folklore and definitely history as well. And many people will be talking about it for years to come. Now, some of the stats to come out of Scott Boland's 6 for 7. 19 balls taken by Scott Boland to complete his 5-wicket haul. It is the joint fastest in terms of balls taken in men's test matches. Only Toe Shack against India in 1947 and Stuart Broad against Australia in 2015 also bowled only 19 balls to claim the 5th wickets in their respective innings. Boland took his 6th wicket in the 21st ball he bowled, the quickest to a 6-wicket haul, bettering Hugh Trumbull, who had 6 wickets in 24 balls against England in 1904, also at the MCG. 2 players with better bowling figures than Boland while making their debut in men's test matches for Australia. Albert Trott took 8 for 43 at the Adelaide Oval in 1895, while Tom Kendall had figures of 7 for 55 in Melbourne in 1877, both against England. Boland's bowling figures are also the 6th best in men's test matches on debut for Australia. So a lot of stats there from Scott Boland's magnificent bowling display there. Overall, it was a brilliant bowling performance from Australia. Overall, a dominant performance from Australia in this 3rd Ashes test from the MCG, which is seeing them retain the Ashes and lead the series 3-0 with 2 test matches left to play. Let's have a look at England's team performance with both bat and ball in this 3rd Ashes test from the MCG. We'll start with their batsmen. Hamid, 0-7. Crawley, 12-5. Malan, 14-0. Root, 50-28. Stokes, 25-11. Bairstow, 35-5. And Butler, 3-5, not out. That's how the England batsmen went about things in this test match. England's batting was poor in this match. Simple as that. Nothing much to say about it, really. We've run out of words to describe England's batting in this test match and in fact, this whole Ashes series. It hasn't been a great performance with bat and ball, especially with the bat for England. To be bowled out for 185 in the first innings set England back big time in this match. And from that moment on, they were behind in the game. Once again, England lost wickets at regular intervals in their first innings, didn't build any big partnerships at all, didn't show any fight, mental toughness and application with the bat at all. Joe Root was the only one who made batting look easy on a pitch that was difficult for batting here at the MCG. Had a bit of assistance there for the bowlers, a bit of seam and a bit of swing movement as well. He made it look easy again. Joe Root's top scoring with 50. Everyone else struggled. And the second innings was even worse. Was embarrassing for England to be bowled out for 68 in 27.4 overs. And it was absolute carnage from start to finish. That innings signalled the death of English cricket, which died at the MCG on the 28th of December 2001, pretty much. And after the bowlers did so well to get England back into this test match, and to bowl Australia out for 267 with a lead of 82 runs, it was an opportunity for England to show some fight and challenge Australia with the bat and try and set a target for Australia in the last innings. Unfortunately, they couldn't do that. But England's batsmen didn't repay the bowlers' hard work, and all that hard work from the bowlers was wasted. Just like in the first innings, lost wickets at regular intervals, 1 for 7, 2 for 7, 3 for 22, 4 for 22, 5 for 46, 6 for 60, 7 for 61, 8 for 65, 9 for 65, and all out 68. Didn't build any big partnerships at all, 7-0, 15-0, 24, 14, 1, 4, 0, and 3. Once again, Joe Root looked so calm and collective at the crease. Once again, he top scored with 28 and made batting look easy, whereas everyone else struggled again. No surprise there. Yet again, didn't show any fight, mental toughness, and application with the bat whatsoever, England. So it was an absolute embarrassing performance from their batsmen, and it sums up their tour, it sums up the test match they had, and pretty much this is the lowest point in English cricket. Obviously, a lot of things have contributed to England's poor performances in this Ashes series. Obviously, their domestic structure in England, obviously the county championship, the emphasis on limited overs cricket, ODIs, T20s, the 100, and obviously that's for another discussion for another day. But in saying all that, it has contributed to England's demise with their batting, and really there's nothing much to say, really. It's just absolutely embarrassing for them. It was absolutely pathetic, and it was a poor performance from England with the bat. Joe Root, what a year he had in 2021. Unbelievable year he had, leading from the front as captain, under pressure as captain as well of this England side that's been losing, and he had to, front up to the media and talk about the problems that England have had. But to have that pressure on his shoulders and then to come out and to score the runs he has in this Ashes series, he scored a few half-centuries, obviously a half-century in the first innings. He scored a half-century in Adelaide and also in Brisbane. To come out and score runs, being under this sort of pressure, it just shows Joe Root's abilities as a batsman to deal with pressure and to have that great mental strength and toughness and resilience. And he just comes out and keeps doing it. But unfortunately, he can't keep doing it. And the pressure is mounting on him as captain. Obviously, his spot as captain is under pressure now, as it is, because when you lose, an Ashes series in 12 days and you're 3-0 down, of course, people are going to talk about should he be captain or not. So, but, I do feel for him. He's performed very well this year in a team that's not really helping him that much, especially the batting unit. So, disappointing for England that they can't support their skipper in Joe Root because he's given it his all. At the end of the day, there's no support for him. So really, overall, it was a poor performance from England with their batting in this test match. And a lot of questions will have to be answered after this Ashes series of their performance in this series in particular, but also their domestic structure in terms of producing quality test match cricketers, which they haven't been able to do in recent years. And unfortunately, in this test match, it just shows what sort of a problem they're dealing with. Let's talk about some of the stats that come out of this test match concerning England's batting. England's second innings total, 68 all out, is their lowest score in Australia since 1904. 18.75, the average runs per wicket for England across the 3 test matches in this Ashes series so far. It's the lowest England have recorded in a multi-test series in 131 years, since the 16.29 runs they scored in the 1890 Ashes series. 54 ducks, the number of ducks England batters have scored in 2021, which equals their own record set in 1998. Rory Burns has the most ducks for England in the calendar year with 6. 1,708 runs, the number of test runs Joe Root finished with in 2021, falling just behind Viv Richards in 1976, 1,710 runs, and calendar year record holder Mohammad Yusuf in 2006, 1,788 runs. Root achieved his runs in 29 innings, while Yusuf and Richards both had 19 for their runs. 1,178, the gap between Root's tally and the next highest English batter's tally for 2021, which was Rory Burns with 530. This is the largest ever gulf. 26.4, the percentage of England's test runs that Joe Root has scored this year. 27.4 overs batted by England during their 68 all-out. Their 5th shortest innings in the Ashes and their shortest innings since 1905. It is also the 2nd shortest innings when the team was all out in the Ashes since World War II. behind Australia's first innings in Nottingham in 2015, which lasted only 18.3 overs. Not good reading for England in terms of those stats with their batting. Overall, a disappointing performance again from England with the bat. Let's have a look at England's bowlers and their performance in this third Ashes test from the MCG. Stokes and Leach took a wicket each. 2 wickets for Robinson and Wood, and 4 wickets for Anderson. That's how the England bowlers went about things in this third Ashes test. I thought the only positive for England in this third Ashes test was their bowling. Their bowling really stood up. For the first time in this series, they challenged the Australian batsmen with the ball. They bowled a fuller length, which challenged the Australian batsmen on a pitch that was offering assistance for the bowlers all game. It wasn't easy to score runs on this surface. Only Joe Root and Marcus Harris made batting look easy on both sides. Everyone else struggled. It was a pitch that you couldn't really get in on as a batsman. You felt like you weren't really set. You weren't really in. There was a lot of grass on the surface, helping for seam movement. In particular, it was 11 mils of grass on this MCG wicket, which is a bit unusual. But for once, the MCG wicket did something, and it wasn't a flat concrete road, as it was 4 years ago in 2017-18, where we had that Ashes test match at the MCG, where Alistair Cook got 244 not out on a flat road. So at least it did something. Bit of swing movement there for the bowlers as well, and England exposed that, and they used those conditions to their advantage. And especially James Anderson led from the front, showing why he's the best bowler in the world and why he's one of England's best ever bowlers they've ever produced. He led from the front, 39 years old. He's getting better with every test match he plays. 4 for 33, he bowled superbly. He led from the front. And England's other bowlers, in terms of Wood, Robinson, did very well. Stokes and Leach did well to support them as well. So it was a good bowling effort from England, and they really gave it their all. They showed a lot of fight, determination, resilience with the ball in this bowling innings. And after the criticism the bowlers got following the Adelaide test, obviously they came back and showed a lot of fight and bowled really well. And they challenged Australia. They were able to bowl Australia out for 267 and kept them to a lead of 82 runs. And they got England back into the match, and England had a chance to challenge Australia with the bat and set Australia a very difficult target to chase on this very difficult pitch in the last innings. But all that hard work and the fight they shown with the ball went in vain, as England had another batting collapse and got bowled out for 68. So the batsmen did not repay their bowlers' hard work and effort. Overall, it was a good bowling effort from England. Overall, it was a poor performance from England in this third Ashes test at the MCG. Let's preview the fourth Ashes test of the series between Australia and England from the SCG, talk about the potential 11s for both teams and who's going to win this fourth Ashes test. Let's have a look at both teams' record in test matches at the SCG. The first test match played between Australia and England from the SCG was back in 1882. They've played 56 matches, 7 of them have been draws. Australia won 27 to England's 22. Let's have a look at Australia's potential 11 for the fourth Ashes test at the SCG. Warner, Harris, Labuschagne, Smith, Head, Green, Carey, Cummins, Stark, Richardson, Lyon, Hazelwood and Boland. I think Australia will make potentially 2 changes to their 11 for the fourth Ashes test at the SCG. I think Josh Hazelwood may come back for Scott Boland. He will probably miss out. Obviously, Scott took 6 for 7. Obviously, very tough to drop someone who's just taken 6 for 7. But obviously, Hazelwood, he looks like he's coming back to full fitness. He was bowling at the MCG nets during the third test. So it may look like he may be coming back for the Sydney test, which is great news for Australia, obviously. If he does, unfortunately, Scott Boland has to miss out. It's a tough call to drop someone who took 6 for 7, but obviously if Hazelwood's fit, then I think he'll play. The other change that they could make is probably resting Mitchell Stark for Sydney. Stark does have a bit of a niggle with his back, obviously, as we saw in Adelaide when he was batting. He was grabbing his back. Obviously, he wasn't hampered by that too much in Melbourne, But obviously, looking forward to the last test match of the series, which is in Hobart for the day-night test, and given Stark's record with the pink ball, I think Australia may rest him and may play Jai Richardson instead. So those could be the two potential changes that Australia make to their 11 heading into the fourth test. So that could be Australia's potential 11 for the fourth Ashes test. Let's have a look at England's potential 11 for the fourth Ashes test at the SCG. Burns, Crawley, Milan, Root, Stokes, Pope, Lawrence, Bairstow, Broad, Wokes, Wood, Leach, and Anderson. I think England will make 3 changes to their 11 for the fourth Ashes test at the SCG. I think Burns, Pope or Lawrence, Broad or Wokes will come into the side for Hamid, Butler, Robinson, who will miss out. Obviously, I think Rory Burns will replace Hamid to open the batting. Hamid struggled. So I think they'll recall Rory Burns. And I think either Pope or Lawrence to replace Joss Butler. Obviously, if that's the case, if Butler misses out, then Bairstow will keep wicket. To me, Butler looks out of sorts. And I think they'll either go back to Pope or Lawrence to replace him in the side. The other change could be Broad and Wokes, either of them to replace Ollie Robinson. He's played 3 test matches on the trot now. He may need a bit of a rest. He did clutch his hamstring during the third test when he was bowling. So I think England may rest him and they may recall either Broad or Wokes to the 11. So that could be England's potential 11 for the fourth Ashes test. And these potential 11s could be the potential 11s for both teams for the fourth Ashes test at the SCG. What can we expect from both teams headed into the fourth Ashes test at the SCG? Australia will be looking to keep their foot on the accelerator and will be looking to win this series 5-0. But they will need to refocus and do the basics with both bat and ball for the next test. England will be looking to avoid a 5-0 series defeat and will be doing a lot of soul searching. But it's not going to be easy for England as all the momentum is with Australia. What a test match we have seen at the MCG. A test match that was on fast forward mode from start to finish. Australia absolutely dominated from ball 1 to win by an innings and 14 runs and to retain the Ashes and lead the series 3-0. What a test debut from Scott Boland, who claimed 6 for 7 in the second innings to guide Australia to victory. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast, and like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.